Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olivia Grace, and this is episode 1 of Wowhead Weekly. I'm joined by Wowhead site manager Perculia. How's it going, Perculia?
Good, lots of fun beta things going
Yeah,
on.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, that's what we were going to talk about first this week. We were going to jump straight into the beta stuff, talking about the two zones that we've got live. So we've got Frostfire Ridge up, and we've got Shadow Moon Valley up. And so, okay, first up, which one do you like better? You both played through both. So
I'm Alliance, so there's
yeah.
probably some bias there, but to me, Shadow Moon is just so amazing. You've got gorgeous scenery, it's lush, verdant. You've got the Draenei culture. You get to see Shadow Moon in a new light. And Frostfire just has a lot of rocks and snow. And I don't feel as connected to it.
Yeah, I know, I agree with that.
Comparison.
I mean, I consider myself an Alliance player. Like, I play mostly Horde right now, but even for me, I'm with both factions. I'm sort of playing through both zones, and I agree. Frostfire is just very. Like, if you really, really loved the Northrend zones, like the very sparse, very sort of barren feeling Northrend zones, then you're going to love Frostfire Ridge. Like, you're going to absolutely love it. But for me personally, I'm totally in agreement. Like, Shadow Moon is so incredibly pretty, and it's just like, it's an amazingly good looking zone, and it's got such ambience to it, and there's so much fun stuff in there. So you've been doing a ton of work for Wowhead, and you can see all of this on Wowhead, of the rare spawns, loot, that sort of thing. Are there any real highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, both zones do a pretty good job at having rare spawn loot. I do find the Alliance ones a little more creative. Again, one cool item I found was a star chart in the Shadow Moon Observatory, and it makes this little mini constellation on a pedestal, and that's really super cute. I really like that. Other rare spawns in the Alliance area are a trinket that rolls a mini iron star from the Garrosh encounter towards your enemy.
That's so cool!
And I think that's really nice. But
yeah.
For the Horde side, there is this arena, and you can do a jumping game to get to this ledge. And on the ledge, you can loot something that's an Arena Master's Warhorn, which summons ogres that fight. And you can also loot by this drink. You can loot an ice block, which melts after 5 minutes. So
it's just a random ice block that you're
both sides. I just prefer the Alliance for
the
presentation and the lore.
Is it so? It's an ice block that you're just putting down and it just melts away. It's just like a mage ice block that's just in the world.
Well, it sits in your bags, and then you're watching the arena going on. You've got this umbrella and this nice table in the shade, and you've got some booze next to you, and click on the booze, you can loot some ice, I guess.
That's really cool. Well, that makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah, yeah. I think like there's definitely some really cool stuff going on in both zones. I think for me, the podlings. I love the podlings in Shadow Moon Valley. They're so cute, but they're so terrifying. My God.
Have you done the quest line for that?
I have. Yeah, I did it on a shaman. It's just like, oh my God, this podling king who then turns on you or whatever. It's just like
so creepy how there's this cave by the podlings, and if you go into it, there's all these dead void squirrels, and you can loot this offhand that's a cooked squirrel, and it's
it's so sad. It's so sad. Like, speaking of quests, are there any other quests that have really sort of like made you stand up and take notice, or not particularly?
So, on the Alliance side, I found the quest involving Karabor really interesting. I feel that in Shadow Moon, there's a lot of interaction between what's happened in the Burning Crusade, and you fill in the backstory now. So there's a lot of spoilers I don't want to give away, but I did find it really touching how you do interact with the temple in its, past glorified state, which I didn't get that sense in the Horde zone. Bladespire felt very empty and remained sort of empty and stone and ogres.
For sure, yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I think that, like, particularly with a lot of the discussion that's been going on recently with the whole, like, oh my goodness, Karabor versus Bladespire versus these faction hubs on Ashran, which we haven't really seen a great deal of yet. Like, I feel like the Alliance has taken a bigger loss, with that change, where, like, Bladespire is, like, it's a cool looking fortress, it's in a cool place, it's, like, it's up on a hill, it's a big tower, and, like, it's fine. Like, it's a nice enough place, but Karabor is just amazing. Like, it's so pretty. Like, I was doing the Frostfire Ridge fly through and just like trying to get like nice angles on it, and it's just like
that's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they just turn up and point the camera at it. The whole place is just incredibly pretty. And I mean, I haven't actually got much up to the quest lines which are in there just yet, but even just running around the area, it's so stunningly pretty. And I think for me as well, there's the quest lines with some of the orcs, which I know you highlighted in a recent post on Wowhead about like the ladies with the trinkets and they combine them together, and like the sad orc stories. There's so many sad orc stories in Crossfire. Like it's such a desolate, snowy, sad zone. Everyone's been murdered, and at least in Shadowmoon, there's some sort of happier stuff taking place as well.
Yeah, I think it makes it really poignant because you get to see the zone that's flourishing. There's a ton of Draenei culture.
Yeah.
There's cute farms. There's stuffed animals. There's fey dragons. And there's this really emotional impact when you think that in Outland, this zone was completely, utterly destroyed.
Yeah.
While with Crossfire, I'm like, okay, this went from snow and rocks to lava and rocks, I guess.
Yeah. It's like, well, there's a bit of a climate change, but other than that, nothing really huge happened. So speaking of zones which are open, we kind of have to hit on the Tanaan Jungle Zone, which is,
definitely.
oh yeah, obviously the opening zone of the expansion. As far as we know, like our prior knowledge has stated that this would be mandatory for people who had boosted their level 90 characters. So if you had, used your Warlords of Draenor level 90 boost and you'd leveled up let's say a mage, you'd have to play that mage through there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we of the impression that that wasn't the case if you had actually leveled your character?
Yeah, I mean, I'm already tired of running it.
Oh my god, me too. Me too.
But yeah, I got the impression that it was a tutorial zone and it was meant to help boosted characters. I know that there was some lore benefits, but I wasn't aware that it was mandatory for, existing players and their heroic Siege of Orgrimmar gear to go run
yeah
for this.
Yeah, exactly. And like the quests which we've seen in that zone like time and time again, like I think, how many characters have you put through there now?
I mean probably like 5 at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I counted the other day because I was talking about it on Twitter, and it was I think I totaled it at 5 or 6 because I just leveled another one through there to try and get my whole garrison to work before the most recent patch. But yeah, it's like the quest win there, which we've obviously seen a lot of now, do indicate that it is a tutorial zone. Like you're getting various rewards, like you're getting healing control spells, you're getting cooldowns. Yeah. Like they're actually listed as quest rewards in there, which implies to me that it's still a tutorial zone. My concern with the story side of it is that it's because there's so much in there. Like Irel is a huge, well, we've heard Irel is a huge character for the Alliance in this expansion. We actually meet her in there. So I'm sort of like, I'm wondering what's going to happen on the story side if it isn't like mandatory. Go through that.
I mean, I think at least they should disable it for people on the beta realms. So we're down on it. And I do think that the zone has some merits. Like, it is really good, I think, for boosted players. And it does talk about the lore. And I think it is really neat to see Alliance and Horde lore figures working together. And it does set the story up because it is a big departure from Mist of Pandaria, and the time travel can confuse people.
Definitely.
But it would be nice to skip it, especially if you don't care about the lore. Like, maybe, I don't know, you've Proving Grounds or some achievement that lets you skip this basic zone.
That's a good idea, yeah.
How's it going to work if you already don't have a boosted character? Like, how do you get those abilities? Are they taken away?
Yeah, that's really strange. And like I'm kind of wondering that with like with max level characters that are like obviously there's going to be an influx of people boosting characters with the expansion. Like that is going to happen when it releases. People are going to buy it. Everyone who's waiting around for the physical collector's edition is going to get it. And like they're going to obviously have these characters which are boosted and which are going to go through there like that. But it's really odd. I don't know quite what they're going to do as far as like, are they going to take the abilities away? Because in beta they're not. Like
it's so confusing.
Fun. Yeah, and I mean, like it's one of those things where as well, like in beta for me at least, and I don't know whether you tried to do any of this, but I couldn't even queue for dungeons until I was out of Tanaan. It just didn't work.
I didn't even try that. I mean, that special dark portal that shows up when you temporarily get to Shadowmoon or Frostfire on beta, that didn't appear unless I did the starting zone. So that's why I've been doing them over just to get to this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was, you're like way more sort of focused, and I was just like, how can I avoid this? How can I avoid this? I'm gonna try and swim, and you can't swim. Don't try swimming; it doesn't work. It just ports you back again and again until you've done certain parts of the zone. At which point you might as well just do the zone. And I was thought, oh, maybe I can just do some dungeons, and I'll level through dungeons. And like I think dungeon XP is kind of broken at the moment, but also it just wouldn't let me queue. The queuing just didn't work. So I kind of feel like I'm wondering, it's this kind of weird halfway house on the beta at the minute of between like, okay, this is obviously going to be mandatory for everyone, and no, the tutorial elements of the quests imply that it's not.
I mean, it's good to put in the context that if you only have one character on live, you're just gonna play it once and then you're gonna go on and do all this cool stuff. So
Won't matter.
We're probably experiencing something a lot of people won't be doing, trying to do the starting zone over and over.
Oh my god, yeah,
the same
totally.
day.
Yeah, I mean, like my leveling method is I level 1 character, then I level 3, because that's how you get the most efficiency out of your rested, is to have 3 running at once. So it'll still bother me on live if it's mandatory, but I'm kind of hoping that it turns out not to be.
Yeah. I hope they also fix the phasing. Like that to me makes it really difficult. I've tried leveling at off-peak hours and it's been so much better, but if you're trying, even the first quest where there's hundreds of people and nothing is a shared tag and you're just fighting over the same drops in a small area, it's really frustrating to do. So
definitely.
I hope that gets changed because it's meant to be a really short tutorial, but it just is very frustrating.
Yeah.
It encourages bad behavior and how you tag mobs and cheat other people out of tagging spawns.
Well, the thing is, like, as well, like, WoW is like that, and they took some really big steps away from that in Mists of Pandaria, which are very positive, in my opinion. Like, good steps into saying, okay, no, you can share tags, and things like they've made the Iron Horde Emissary item that you get before the Dark Portal, you go through the Dark Portal. Spoilers, sorry. I kind of guess we knew that we go through the Dark Portal at some point. But they made the Iron Horde Emissary drop a 100% drop rate. But there are various points, like when you're fighting the orcs directly after that, like they need to make those a shared tap. And there's just, to me, like the thing which drove me crazy about it was the amount of time you spend waiting on Khadgar. Like, I mean, obviously, again, I don't want to spoil the zone too much, but you have this whole phase where you're just like, all right, now follow Khadgar to the next place, follow Khadgar to the next place. And he just like chills out for a while before he's like, oh, okay, I should go. I asked you to follow me, I should go. And it's just like, oh my God, Khadgar, like, get it together, man. It's like Thrall in like Durnhold Keep. It's like,
oh God, exactly.
What is even happening here? It's crazy. But yeah, it's like, that is definitely something I would love changed. And just things like, I feel like they haven't really learnt their lesson with start zones as far as like the sort of, let's sort of bottleneck everybody up with this one thing that they need to do.
It's just, I mean, it's a tutorial zone. It's not meant to be like some essential thing that gets some loot or, you know, crazy thing that you need or some high-end thing. It's just meant to teach you how to use your abilities, and you can't really do that if you can't kill anything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like pretty straightforward there, but there are some really cool bits as well. Like you mentioned, like I know that we've both actually been tweeting about it. This thing which allows you to draw.
Oh, that is the coolest thing. That should be a toy. Yeah. People would abuse it.
Yes, they should. Oh man, that should be it. Yeah, people would totally abuse it. Like it would become completely obligatory for raiders, and they'd be like, right, no, you all stand on this line, and like you guys stand in this circle, go from point A to point B, and like draw A's and B's on the ground. And then set fire to them. For people that don't know,
for one quest, when you loot something, it follows a black trail of soot behind you. And this remains until you complete the quest and do the turn-in. And you have this buff that lasts 10 minutes. So you can get pretty creative walking around and drawing all sorts of interesting things on the ground.
Yeah, definitely. And I could totally see it being, like, it would be a really fun toy, but there's no way they'd ever do it.
Yeah, it's like Ice Crown Citadel and that add-on that.
Oh, yeah. Was it ARG or something like that? ARG?
DVR maybe? I don't,
AVR, there we go, that's right. I always do that because I always like reality blah 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 something. But yeah, there's a very cool stuff in there. But so I think that there's definitely sort of, like, Tanaan isn't a bad zone either, like I hasten to add. Like, it's not awful or hateful or like a terrible thing to do. It's just that any kind of obligatory content gets boring with repetition.
Yeah, and they could smooth some of the, rough edges of it out, some of the phasing things, and some of the timing of it, perhaps. It is still pretty new, so maybe they're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking of new things, we've also got the Garrisons up on the beta at the moment, and with the most recent build, the Horde one was able to be leveled to level 2, along with the Alliance one, which was leveled previously. So what exactly, like, we've seen some changes from what we'd expected with with both Garrisons. So what is actually, like, what is there? What do you get for leveling? So what's in the level 1 Garrisons right now?
All right, so Garrisons are still slightly buggy because you can only really build the barracks in the alchemy lab. So make sure if you want to do Garrisons on the beta, make sure you are an alchemist.
Yes.
So the level 1 Garrison, you have 1 small plot and 1 large plot. And small buildings are gentlemen professions, and large plots can do more creative things like the barracks. If you have the barracks, you can get followers to fight for you in Draenor every 5 minutes. So that's the level 1 Garrison. It's pretty homey. The walls aren't too big. Your order hut is literally like a tent. Yeah. It's pretty small and kind of cozy.
Yeah, they actually. Sorry. I was just going to say, they actually made the, like, when we first zoned into the Alliance Garrison, and again, you can see all of this in all of our posts on Wowhead. We've got a ton of information on Garrisons. We've got a calculator, we've got followers, we've got all the missions, we've got literally everything you could ever want to know, just as an aside. But we was like, obviously, the Horde zone was the first to come up, so we were playing around in the Horde Garrison, and then we went to the Alliance one. It's like, wow, this is a lot smaller. Like, this is tiny by comparison to the Horde one. But I mean, I don't know about your take on this, but I actually really liked that. Like, I liked the smaller size.
I mean, going back to the zone comparison, I liked how the Alliance one felt like it was a sustainable village because it had trees and greenery, and it seemed like people could grow things and eat.
Yeah.
I did like the smaller thing. It made it feel more like a town. It also reminded me of Alarian's Stronghold in Terracar, which was one of my favorite areas because you had all these buildings from different races and cultures together, and you had some, keg off in the corner, and there was a sort of cool statue, and there were some trees around. So the Alliance one reminded me of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me as well, the Alliance one just felt like something that you could have actually like realistically landed and built it. Like the Horde one felt like, it would have taken at least a couple of like months to put this thing together.
Lugging some wood from trees.
Yeah, exactly. Like you really, with the Alliance one, it really felt small enough that it was realistic, that this was like your first outpost in a new world and you were trying to build something up. And like the points you made about the farm and the sustainability is really cool. But then they actually made the Horde one smaller. So they downsized the Horde one to much more closely correspond with the Alliance. It's still quite a bit bigger than the Alliance one. But
does it feel better, or does it still feel a little...
Yeah, it's still sort of... It still feels too big compared to the Alliance one. Like, they've only got the 3 plots, but just the overall surface area is bigger. And it's kind of obvious. And I mean, maybe it wouldn't be obvious to someone who hadn't experienced the old, larger one. But to someone who has, it's obviously, like, you can see the shape of the Earth, that they haven't changed the landscape at all. They've just moved the walls. Yeah. And so it's just like, there was that big hollow in the middle, which they've just closed off half of it. And it sort of feels a bit artificially smaller. But I think if you hadn't played the old one, then you would obviously not notice that. And it feels better. It doesn't feel nearly as sort of homely and cozy and sort of realistically a thing that you could have built quickly as the Alliance one. But maybe there's further iteration coming as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And obviously also we've got a bunch of like cool details that you've been really, really good at finding me. So what have been your Garrison detail highlights?
So using the followers database and also what's in game, you can see all the cool followers that you can potentially get in Warlords. And followers can range from people you get from quest rewards to ones that you discover randomly. But there's some really funny ones, like Archmage Vargoth is a rare quality follower, and he has some sort of mage food perk. There's one follower that's a tribute to Dark Souls, Solaire of Anderhall.
Oh, cool.
There is a very disturbing one that looks like XT that is called the Pleasure Bot 9000.
Wow.
Sure, he does something with engineering. And there's some other interesting lore figures, like if you've done the Nagrand quest, the half-orc, half-Draenei NPC from those quests in the southern part of the zone is also a follower. So looking forward how to get all of those. So.
And there's also a bunch of monuments and things in there as well that you've been looking into quite a lot, right?
Yeah, definitely. So monuments are these pedestals, and they offer garrison customization. You complete some difficult achievements and you unlock a monument. And right now they're really tacking over the top, which I kind of love. Like there's this gigantic profession book in bronze, and there are these profession medallions around it, and that's for doing some sort of intense profession achievement. And there's also very dramatic swords and books and all sorts of things for battle pet achievements as well. And in a previous build, there was this gigantic Naga statue and owl statue.
Yeah, I saw those that you posted those up on Wowhead, I think. Yeah. And there's also like the other thing that you saw which really made me laugh was what's with the ghost? The ghost in the outhouse. What is going on? Yeah,
so there is this, we found it first in the alpha, but if you use the outhouse, you get an achievement. And
do you remember what the achievement's called?
I think it's called like staying regular.
Oh no, you're right. It is staying keeping regular or staying regular or something like that.
So there's an achievement for using the outhouse, and after I completed a sad Alliance quest line where someone dies, I checked out the Alliance outhouse, and the ghost of that person was in the outhouse.
Oh my god! So it's actually the ghost of a person you encounter.
Yeah.
It's not just a random ghost. Oh. Well, that makes it a lot more understandable. Like, I thought it was just a random ghost that had just come out of nowhere and was in your garrison. Like, oh, okay, that makes it a lot more comprehensible now. I haven't checked the horde outhouses. I should. I'm afraid now.
Probably some sad orc in there.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, so the other thing with the garrison, obviously with the downsizing of the horde garrison for the level 1, the plots, we've obviously lost some plots there, but as I understand it, there's been a decrease in the number of plots which will be available overall, which is obviously causing some people to worry about things like, you know, picking buildings and what should they choose. And to me personally, this seems like quite an interesting and a good idea. Like, I've never thought with garrisons that you should have access to everything and you should be able to build literally every building. Like, to me, it's like a talent tree almost, where you're sort of like, right, I have to make interesting choices here. I have to pick between this building or that building, you know, pick between a barn and a sparring arena or something along those lines. To me, that's interesting. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting because we haven't been able to build our garrisons completely. So I feel that while people have a right to be concerned, we haven't actually had anything taken away because, you know, we can only build 2 buildings currently.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think people are concerned that garrisons could appear mandatory and they could be thinking, well, you know, I need the following buildings. I need the following perks for my professions, you know, for my raiding, for my transmog, for my pets. And now I have to make choices. But we haven't really seen them yet. So I think that if garrisons are not intended to be mandatory, you know, just losing things that will not have a huge impact on your gameplay or, you know, hobbies or enjoyment, you know, it will just make for more interesting choices as opposed to, you know, really crippling your character, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like, personally, for me at least, there's been nothing which I've heard yet, and there's a big yet there, that is making them really feel like I can understand the concern of, oh, I'm gonna have to have an armory. Like, I know that you tweeted recently about some perks that were coming from the armory, which were very, very useful. Like, just remind me what those were?
Yeah, so I think, well, the one that most raiders would be interested in is that it provides an alternate way to get a bonus roll, and there was some commotion because people thought at first it was like a 4th bonus roll that you could get, which would then let you roll on items. But it still is pretty nice because if you're busy and if you don't want to do the other ways to get, you know, the tokens for bonus rolls, you could just have this armory.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There was some discussion about that.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, I think there's a legitimate concern there that some people will feel, and it's like that sort of thing. It's very important for Blizzard to make it so that the other ways aren't that difficult. Yeah. Like, you know, just make it so that the other ways are relatively straightforward and no one will really mind. But there is a concern, like, I certainly feel like I should. Like, obviously, that's my own personal feeling. That's not my saying that it is mandatory, but I feel like it's likely that I will want to have a garrison building for my 2 primary professions. So, you know, whatever those happen to be on the particular character I'm talking about. And I will want to have certain other building, like I'll want to have the mine working, but that seems to be an extraneous different thing. That doesn't seem to take a plot right now.
Yeah, the mine and the herb garden, I think, are open to everyone. Like, I was able to unlock it and I didn't have mining.
Yeah, so there's those 2 things which you're going to get them anyway. And then it's sort of like, I can understand with we've got 3 plots. Town hall, we have to have 1 profession building, and the barracks, I'm assuming, like, I don't know whether the current structure of that being all the time you build a barracks is just going to be the normal case. It seems relatively likely that you'll kind of want to.
I've heard on Twitter that you can rip buildings down. I think Muffins was talking about that. So, I mean, if you really don't like something, or if you're like, okay, I have all my gear, I don't need this bonus roll anymore, just tear it down.
Yes. Exactly. But I kind of feeling like, so you've got 2 profession buildings that you'll want to have. You've got the town hall and the barracks, which you will build, but maybe can tear down the barracks at least, if you decide you don't want the little army of orcs and humans that come from that ability. And then, like, you've got, like, that's only 3 plots, like the town hall and 2 profession buildings, and that's a level 1 garrison. So in a way, like, you could look at it as the next levels are all just whatever you want, really. Like, obviously they won't be at first. But yeah, I think that there's sort of, you know, I think the concerns are valid, but I think that it's kind of unnecessary to want to have everything. Like, you'll have to split it out and be different. And again, like, it was talked about a while ago, but obviously we know now that these are character specific. Like, you don't have an account-wide garrison. So it's not a case of, oh god, if I build this blacksmithing building, my tailor can't have a building. Like, that's done by character.
It could be a good way to incentivize people to make alts, you know, like, oh, I have this alt, but I hate leveling professions. I'm like, oh, now this alt can just, you know, get her bonus rolls so she doesn't have to do everything else. And, you know, in a month she can just take all her bonus rolls and go get some loot quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, do they feel like, to you at least, like you've done more raiding than I have, do they feel mandatory from a raiding perspective?
I mean, that's always an interesting discussion because, you know, I think at a certain level, if you are min-maxing everything, then you would want to min-max every possible new thing when you get to a very high level. But,
Yeah.
you know, in the interim, a lot of people are not at that level. And you do have to think about the time that you're spending raiding. You know, if you're not signing up to raid every day, you've made a choice about how you are spending your time. So, you know, you should think about, you know, proving grounds, challenge modes, how your gear is, you know, running with friends, key bindings. There's lots of other things before that. It sort of reminds me of the 300 stat food debate, how, yes, you know, you should use it in some situations, but I think that it's easy for people to grasp onto a very sort of obvious means of improving your character that's difficult, and sometimes you lose sight of the more subtle but more effective ways to boost your character. Like there was also a discussion about new enchants and secondary stats, and people were saying, well, if they're all good, you know, should I min-max for different encounters? And it's like, well, if you're going for world first, then you should, because you're doing everything else. But if you're not, then there's probably other ways you can, you know, beat the encounter or learn how to be a better player that doesn't involve, you know, re-enchanting your gear.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, like, there's a mentality there, and if that's how you like to play the game, then fantastic. If your preferred game style is that you just want to eke out every single tiny advantage for your character, then, you know, awesome. But that's a choice as well. There's no one making you do that. And if there are people making you do that, then maybe reconsider some choices that you've made with your friends in the game. Like if there's actually people saying you have to have this thing, and you're not in a really high end guild, then it's difficult to sort of, like, you have to be able to play the game you want to play.
Yeah, I mean, also, if you're raiding 2 nights, you shouldn't be spending the other 5 nights on how to, you know, go redo your gear. So if that's the case, you should be raiding actually raiding the encounters as opposed to doing all the prep for it. Raiding is the best way to learn how to get better at the encounter.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, there's always this discussion around any kind of, like, mandatory question, and it's difficult to answer that because everybody's different. But it's, I don't know, I don't feel like Garrisons seem mandatory. I've not seen anything that makes me think that they're mandatory right now.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is that we haven't seen many Garrison blogs, and I think that more of them were promised, so maybe having more coverage in general would be good. I know that's why we've been trying to really keep our Garrison database, you know, up to date and adding all the new file formats and abilities and everything, just so people have something to look at so they can make their own choices and be better informed about this tool. So maybe we just need more buildings to test and, you know, more blogs as promised, so this feature is clearer to the base.
And I feel like maybe the only thing which I can really see, particularly at the start of an expansion, the top raiders latching onto as something that they have to do, is the follower quests, which have been so incredibly buggy on the beta right now. So buggy. So we haven't really seen a lot of those. We haven't really seen those in action a great deal. And I've understood from previous interviews that they're actually going to be awarding loot for your character. So particularly very, very early on in the expansion, depending on how the item levels fall with that loot in comparison to others, it could be the case that you might be able to fill a gap in your gear by doing that sort of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the interview that we did with Watcher, he was comparing it to LFR or even crafted gear, how it's nice that you can eventually get it, but it's not like, you know, instant, and it could take some time to get. That you shouldn't feel like it's mandatory, and like if you do followers for a week, you'll have a full set of epic gear.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And I mean, like, there's a ton of different ways to get gear in the game as well. Like, it's not necessarily going to be the case that you'll get that one item that you need just because you have to, and you have to do your follower quest for that. And they also don't seem like super involved things to do anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving on, we've actually got some of the, like, part of what we want to do with the show is tell you about what's going on Wowhead itself. So really exciting things at the moment right now. So we've got a beta key giveaway going on. We've got one on the main site. So do you just want to give us some details about what the one on the main site, like our main beta key giveaway?
All right, so for several weeks, we are doing weekly giveaways. Blizzard has graciously given us 2,000 beta keys, and you can enter by just going to Wowhead's front page, and each week we have a different in-game activity that we're going to ask you to do. We want people getting these keys who are, you know, passionate about the game, who are playing, and who like doing stuff in game. So all you have to do is do our in-game criteria. This week it's exploring different outland zones because we've gotten a lot of information about zone previews from Blizzard. So you just do that, and then you go to our profiler and you load up your character on Wowhead's profiler. You just verify the character so we know it's you, and then you just enter the contest. Easy button at the top of the page. And if you don't win that week, next week we'll give you something else to do.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah, exactly. So you've got the whole week to enter, and you just need to make sure that you've got one character verified. And it's worth mentioning that the first time you verify your character is the only time you'll need to do it.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, you don't need to I've done it on my mage, Olivia's mage. I then will just go and attach Olivia's mage to my Wowhead account, and then that will register every week. So the first week was to complete a wing of Siege of Orgrimmar. As Perk mentioned, this week we've got the Outland exploration. So all I need to do is just go onto my mage and explore Outland. That mage is already verified. I didn't actually enter the contest, by the way. That would be all kinds of against the rules.
Yes,
but had I done that, I would just then go with my mage, the same mage again, and explore Outland, and then that would already be verified. It wouldn't be a problem. Like, I wouldn't have to go through the character verification process again. So it's easy to enter once you've done it the first time. It's very easy to enter, and then you can just carry on doing the achievements and keep entering and keep hoping to win Beta keys.
Yeah, also, we want to point out that because it's a week-long giveaway, it's not first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So just you have any time within that week-long period to enter, and then we have this great automated tool that picks winners after that week is over, and then you just get emailed the beta key from Wowhead.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll get an email from Wowhead. Check your inboxes on the day that the giveaway is due to end. So we've also, we wanted to announce with this first one, we've actually got another giveaway, which is just me and Perk. We've got 5 keys each to give away. You may have noticed if you follow us on Twitter that we did a giveaway last time that we had the Wowhead one starting. This one we're doing slightly differently.
Yeah, if we want to keep it more interesting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you don't just have to follow us and retweet the tweet now. It's actually a little bit more involved. So what we're asking you to do, and you'll need to do this for both me and I'm trying to point at Perk, who's... Wait, I always do this with the camera angle. She's down there. For both me and Perk. So you'll need to make sure you're following us, because we're going to DM you codes. We're going to DM you codes on Twitter. So we can't DM you if you're not following us. Like, I actually had a winner of my previous competition last week who was randomly selected, wasn't following me, so I had to just select someone else. And it's like, oh, it's such a shame for that person. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah. So make sure you're following us. Our Twitter handles are, like, Perks is above her screen, mine is below my screen, and they're right there. So just go find us on Twitter, follow us, and then we are going to ask you to look for our favorite item in the game. So how am I meant to know that? I hear you ask. How am I meant to know what Perk and Olivia's favorite items are? Well, on Wowhead, there is a thing called a user page. So that's like, obviously, what would yours would be the Perculia one. Mine is Olivia D. Grace. Again, same as the Twitter handles, same as those. So you just want to find us and find your way to our user pages. Is it user page, right? Not user profile.
Yeah, it's the user page. It's just like user equals Perculia. You can click on our name.
There you go. Easy. So just go through a news post until you find either of our names. Again, they're above and below. And you just click onto that. And on there, we may have mentioned our favorite items. Just a tip, top tip from the top. Those may be where you find them. So what you're going to need to do is tweet at us, again, Twitter above and below, with that link, the Wowhead link, and we should have a hashtag for this so we can search them easily. Yes. What do we want your hashtag to be? I'm going to do mine as Olivia Beta Giveaway. So hashtag Olivia Beta Giveaway. Okay, and I'm going to type this out.
Yeah, let's do Perk Beta Giveaway.
Okay, I'm going to type these out and I'm going to superimpose them over the screen. So that you can look at the hashtag and you can say, right, you're going to tweet at Olivia or at Perk with their favorite item and the hashtag Olivia Beta Giveaway or Perk Beta Giveaway. Easy as that. That's how you're going to do it. And we'll then do a random selection on the same day as the Wowhead contest ends. And we will pick a winner and we'll DM you a key. So who knows, you might get lucky. And we're obviously also going to talk about this on Twitter as well. We're not just going to do it for the podcast.
And you could learn something about us in the process.
Who knows? You could learn something. It's amazing. So we've also got, like, Perk, I wanted to definitely talk about this. We've got a new now Wowhead subscription program. So what's going on there?
Feature. Yes. So we've always had Wowhead Premium, and it had some basic features. You could have ads removed, you could get some special forum borders, but we really wanted to revamp the program and do something, really special and awesome with it. The site's grown in so many ways, we can do so many cool tools now, and we wanted to do more for our users. So with the new subscription program, patrons have access to a lot more goodies than before. We have this really cool backscanner tool where Wowhead will store everything in your bank, void storage, and guild bank, and you can filter with it different ways. You can see how many stacks of something you have. And the really cool thing is that as you're browsing items on Wowhead, the quickbacks and the tooltips will tell you if you actually own that item.
Oh, that's really handy.
It's really awesome.
I didn't even know it did that. That's really cool.
And we also have improved search results where if an item has, if anything has a screenshot associated with it, and it's a featured screenshot, that will show up next to the tooltip as you're browsing, the news or search results or anything. And, this could be pretty intensive if it just was offered to all users, but the costs from the Wowhead patron service let us offer this to our patron users. And I think it's really useful, especially, if there's beta things and you're not in the beta. If you're reading an article, you can see, all the screenshots that are awesome for this new thing.
Yeah, so and that applies to mounts and pets as well?
Yep.
Everything with a tooltip.
Yeah, so items, spells, and achievements, those are the big ones I can think of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's like, there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, right? It's not just something where we renamed the patron program subscription and left it there.
We even try to jazz up the existing features we have. So for example, we always had little, borders on your forum avatars, the special ones for patron users, and we added a few more just to make, those people feel special. And we gave them special gold text in forums and, comments. And if you're looking at a list of forum topics, the usernames are in legendary orange, so people feel really special.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. But yeah, do have a look at that. Like, you don't, and it's worth mentioning that although we put this in the same sort of part of the show as the beta keys, you're not going to get an advantage on the beta key giveaways for patrons. There's no paid element here for us. Like, you have to have a WoW subscription, but we don't have to pay Wowhead.
We've been spending a lot of time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
To tell you how excited we are that we have these two features.
Yeah, very labor intensive. Like, there's been a ton of work done on the subscription program. All right, so going back to the beta stuff and the new stuff, we've seen a lot of character models coming out this week. We've had the Draenor model Artcraft just yesterday, right? That was just yesterday?
Yeah, that was yesterday night.
Yeah, so we've actually had him on the beta for quite a long time now. I don't remember exactly which build it was he was introduced. I feel it was 2 ago.
I feel it was 2 weeks ago or so. We didn't have very many models. We only had the Death Knight tier 17, but we got the Night Elf female, human female, Draenor male, and
the Undead Male, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got those into the model viewer, and you could then see the new models on the actual beta.
Yeah, which is really cool. Like, there's the Wowhead model viewer, by the way, is a really, really good way to check out your model. And also, if you've done the steps we were talking about with the profiler, you can even look at how your exact character will look if we have a model for them for Warlords. So there are some that we don't have. So we don't have any trolls. We don't have the Tauren female. We have the human male? No, we don't have the human male.
No, we just have the Artcraft.
Yeah, that's right. It's so confusing because you've got some models and some Artcrafts and some models with no Artcraft. And
yeah, I feel like some people get tripped up on that. They're like, well, if we see the Artcraft, like, why isn't it on Wowhead yet? And it's like, well, it has to be in the data files.
Yeah.
And we don't know when that happens. But
yeah,
when it does,
exactly.
It'll, like, instantly be on Wowhead.
Exactly, yeah. So we're we're doing really well at getting those in there. And there's really good ways to look at actually your personal character. So my mage, Olivia's mage, I can load it in there. Unfortunately, my mage is an undead lady, so we don't have that one yet.
Yeah. Well,
but we can load it up.
Yeah.
But your character is a Night Elf rogue. All your Night Elves, yeah. Everyone is Night Elf. You could load up all of your characters in the profile and actually look at what they will look like with the current Warlords models, which is a really cool feature. So actually, speaking of your characters, all the Night Elves, do you feel happy with the models? Do you think they capture the essence of the existing models?
So it's really tricky for me because if you just showed me a model, I would say that it looks really artistic and I appreciate all the updates, but it's not quite clicking with my main yet for several reasons. I think Night Elf specifically had some issues where they didn't match up the old and new details correctly yet. Like, my Death Knight has the pink hair, and I think she has like black hair on the beta.
That's a
shame. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Perk, her hairstyle feels a bit longer, which is confusing me because I had the short cropped hair, and now the ponytail, which is pretty long on live, is shorter than my short haircut. So I'm sort of confused by that. And there's some other things like the pure white hairstyle for night elves is now white with blue shading, which looks really pretty.
Yeah.
I don't have any night elves with that hairstyle, so I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But Jarek, one of our devs, his favorite character has the white hairstyle, and he's really sad that his pristine white hairstyle is now
it's blue. No, it definitely has a bluish tint, because actually one of my characters is a night elf priest who I recently copied over, and like she's got the white hair, the ponytail, the double ponytails, the pigtails, white, like bright white, right. And like, but it actually works really well with her because her transmog is this bluish white set. So it actually looks great. But if I wanted to go towards a yellow transmog or something, it would start to look really weird. And there's definitely some inconsistency in the hairstyles. And we know that they're almost certainly working on this. Like, we have no reason to believe that the hairstyles are final. We have no reason to believe that the hair colors are final. And they're definitely listening to feedback. Like, you can see Chris Robinson, we've been reporting on a bunch of his tweets lately.
Happy to see that.
Yeah, like he was talking about faces and how they want to introduce more customization and make it a bit truer to the older models. Like particularly people who've been using the profiler to look at some of the human females. Like my paladin, for example, is a human female, and they just haven't got the and it's hard to capture the essence of the face, but I think it's a lot to do with the new rigging and the new skeletons being way more detailed, that they were able to create way bigger differences between faces with the old ones. But I'm really happy that that's something that they're actually working on.
Yeah, I mean, even on the Night Elf, they were talking about having the teeth be more pointed and prominent to convey this, savage nature. But from far away, it sort of looks like her mouth is open in surprise, which isn't really how I view my rogue at all. Right. So I'm sure that will be worked out. Also, there's this very strange unibrow, which I think is a bug. But it does look at her face a bit strange right now.
There's definitely some oddness with the Night Elves, and I don't know why. Like they seem to, at least my priests seem to have her mouth open just all the time to show off the fangs.
I know.
Which was just a bit odd.
You're stealthy. You're not the one.
Exactly. You're the one surprising people.
Yes.
Not the other way around. But yeah, so there's definitely again, check out your character on the Wowhead profiler. I mean, I personally, my biggest surprise is definitely oh wow, there's something really loud going on outside, sorry about that. My biggest surprise is definitely the Undead Male. I typically don't play male characters. I do every now and then, but just for difference. But like the Undead Male is so cool. Like there's something about him, he's just adorable. Like all my pre-mades now are Undead Males.
Yeah, I had fun going through all of the characters and taking pictures of the updated hairstyles, and just the male ones had such a range of expressions and just really interesting features, and it just captured my attention in the way that the live versions didn't so much.
Definitely, yeah. And I think they're way more endearing now with the facial movement and all that sort of thing. But speaking about live, we've got also the Valor of the Ancients buff has returned. Now sorry, Heart of the Valorous, not Valor of the Ancients. I'm mixing them up. So Valor of the Ancients is the one you get for capping out your Valor on one character. Yeah. I meant to say Heart of the Valorous, which is the one that you get, which is this temporary buff, which also doubles your Valor earned. So it increases by 100%, right? That's correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that has been coming and going a lot recently. So it came up over the 4th of July weekend, and it came up for 2 weeks prior to that, but it started on some really silly days. Like it was a Thursday. Was it a Thursday when it started?
Yeah, I think it was May 30th to June 10th, I think was the first.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's definitely, it seems to be coming up quite regularly. Do you think that this is something they're going to be doing over and over, like repeating it to keep people interested?
I mean, well, it's come back. This is the 3rd time now on the week. So I think that they definitely liked how it went the first time, and they obviously have the tech to redo this. So, I mean, I think we'll see it more frequently. Maybe the legendary buff will return too. Because a lot of people found it was too short, and also Chapter 2 was a roadblock, and if you were in Chapter 1, you didn't really take advantage of it.
Exactly. And just for clarity, the legendary buff is the Gaze of the Black Prince, right? Which increases your reputation earned with the Black Prince by 50%? I don't remember the number.
I think it's 100, and it increases the chance you can loot the items, but no one knows how much it is, and that's definitely not 100%.
No, no, it's definitely not. And I mean, that's, to be honest, a lot of people when we were first talking about this on Wowhead were saying, oh, the Black Prince rep's the easy part. Yes, that's true. But the buffed drop rate on the runestones, the sigils, all that stuff, that is really, really handy. So, I mean, I think we'll definitely see that one coming back. I don't know, to me, as someone, I have not yet completed a legendary quest chain. It doesn't appeal to me. No, I haven't got it, which is crazy because I have an item on a boss which has my name on it, which you can only get by completing the legendary quest chain. So even that hasn't been enough to entice me into completing it. I keep getting to a certain point and then stopping. So for me personally, these buffs aren't super exciting. But like, as someone who, obviously you have got yours, I've seen it. I've seen it online. So do you think that this is something where people are really going to come back? Do you think these buffs are enticing enough to draw people in who are lapsed?
So it's hard to say, because I feel that if you're capping Valor, you're going to do that Tuesday if you're raiding.
Yeah.
I do think that on the weekend, more people do have time to play, so it makes sense having some sort of perk then. But I don't know. It seems that at this point, people are trying to focus on doing other things, actually collecting the gear. If they're limited on time to play, you want to be actually grabbing those epics that you didn't get during the week, or actually raiding during the week.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that like if they were to just extend them so they ran from Tuesday to Tuesday, like they could do, Heart of the Valorous and then a week off, and then put the Gaze of the Black Prince on and then take a week off, and like that sort of would work better almost, because the weekend is not like when I was doing a lot of raiding, like haven't done much recently, but I used to raid a lot, and I was never capping stuff on the weekend. I always did it in the week. I'd always come home in the evening, cap stuff, and then go back to work the next day.
Yeah. Also, I mean, for the Black Prince buff, I still think they really need to do something about Chapter 2.
Yes.
Because I actually was inspired when the Black Prince rep was up. I'm like, oh, I'll level my Warlock, and maybe she'll go for Green Fire. And then that just, oops, there is a sound. So, I thought that I could work on the Legendary questline, and it would help my Warlock at an edge if I was doing Green Fire, boost her eye level, get some powerful rewards. And that I just stopped in Chapter 1.
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, oh, wait.
Chapter 1, because her weapon's already better. I can't use the gem reward. And I'm not looking forward to capping Valor for 3 weeks in Chapter 2. I could do, going back to the previous conversation, I could do other things to make my character better, to do this quest line instead of just grinding for this one item. So I stopped, and I think that because Chapter 2 is a blocker for a lot of people, both with the Valor having to be done over 3 weeks, and also making people who don't PvP, forcing them to PvP, I think that something should be changed for that.
Definitely.
And I would even say keep the Black Prince buff up permanently, because, if you're trying to raid or, switch to an alt to keep raiding, those characters are going to be pretty far behind performance-wise without the really powerful meta gem and cape. So I think doing things that encourage the people that are dedicated, that really need this cape to, help their raid out, or they need it for any specific reason, keeping that buff on makes sense. It's the end of the expansion, just keep it on.
Yeah, exactly. And there's definitely there's some changes they could make as well to just make those buffs work a little bit better. Like they could easily just increase the Valor cap to go along with the Heart of the Valorous. So not only are you capping faster, you're capping higher. And with the Gaze of the Black Prince, I feel like they could definitely do something about that 2 week period in the middle. Like I feel like there's improvements that could be made to both of these. But keep an eye out for them, and maybe they're coming along again soon. And there's definitely the potential there for them to make the Legendary Cloak a lot easier. And I mean, is there other cool buffs that you think you'd like to see?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I've always been such a big fan of wanting the existing holidays to get buffs.
Right.
And I'd rather those have an emphasis as opposed to these sort of, I don't know, weekend holiday events. Like, I would love if the Midsummer event made it meaningful. Like, okay, I have to log on because I'm getting the special experience buff, during the Midsummer Festival that I can't get any other time.
Yeah.
Or, there's this holiday and I have to log on and get this cool battle pet that I haven't gotten any other time. Because I feel the existing holidays, it's like, well, they used to have cool things, but things are account-wide, so you don't need to redo it again. There used to be, good gold or a special experience from doing the quest, or maybe like the Wickerman Festival, you get experience that way, but now the Darkmoon Fair has that. So I feel like the holidays are like really cool relics, and they updated them in Cataclysm, and now they just sort of got, I don't know, a lot of their interesting potential sort of removed in MoP with the account-wide changes.
Definitely.
So I would love if they sort of spiced those up instead and had things like, I don't know, even a battle pet that you could just buy with the tokens, for the next year, cosmetic armor. I would love if they did stuff like that. So mixing up the very sort of straightforward, boring sounding weekend events like, hey, go farm Valor with, hey, well, if it's, Midsummer, you could get a cute new Scorch thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, so, well, there we go. That was quite a decent first show. We've actually just had a build appear So
wow.
we actually rather are going to have to cut ourselves off here. I feel like we've covered a bunch of things. So hopefully you've enjoyed the show, and hopefully you'll come back again next week. You can follow me on Twitter at Olivia D. Grace. You can follow Perk on Twitter at Perculia. You can see the spelling again above the screen.
Yep.
Do check out our user profile, see what our favorite items are, and enter the Beta Key giveaway. We've got to go do some data mining, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching.
Later.